are these people?
And we're going to go over to now how the Trump administration is coming after everyday Americans and everyday non-citizens, specifically people who are living here. And that's just the start, because it's going to start there, and then it's going to move to the dissident people, the people that challenge the Trump administration. So here's one. Another man ordered home by a federal judge, and the Trump administration refusing again. Now, I'm not familiar with Desert in Bloom as a publication, but I read this article and I thought it was outstanding. All right. So talking about CCOT. Before the barbed wire and prison guards, before the courtroom battles, before his name leaked through a government redaction mistake, he was just Christian. That's how the court referred to him, Christian. No last name, no family history, just a pseudonym meant to protect a 20-year-old Venezuelan man from retaliation while lawyers fought to bring him home. A man who never should have been deported in the first place. God, how many stories have we heard like that already? His real name, as we now know from a leaked court metadata and family testimony, is Daniel Lozano Camargo, and what happened to him isn't just an immigration story. It's another in a series of constitutional violations many Americans watch idly. Here's what happened to him. He was 20 years old. He had tattoos, yes. A rose, a pair of praying hands, the names of his grandmother and the little girl he helped raise. He also had something else, a pending asylum case, a valid work permit, and the full protection of a 2024 court settlement that said he could not be deported until his claim was heard. But the Trump admin sent him to CCOT anyway. They called him Christian in court, a pseudonym to keep him safe. But again, thanks to the metadata left in a redacted ICE document, we now know the truth. Christian is Daniel, and Daniel is sitting in CCOT, the most violent prison in El Salvador, shaved, shackled, and disappeared.
What country you from?
Daniel came to the U.S. in 2022. At 17, he crossed the border alone. He was processed as an unaccompanied minor. He did everything he was supposed to. He was placed in a shelter, then released to a family. In Houston, he started a car detailing business. He met a woman. He helped her raise her daughter. He applied for asylum. He followed every legal process available to him. He did what he was supposed to.
Right away.
Then came 2 drug charges. And people are allowed to come to this country and declare asylum. That is not illegal.
Uh-huh.
Then came 2 drug charges, both nonviolent, both tied to survival in a new country with no safety net. One in June for a small amount of coke. Then another in November. He wasn't selling and he wasn't hurting anyone. He was snorting coke. Not good, especially the father of a the pseudo father of a child. He was 19 trying to cope. I never did coke, but I did drugs when I was 19. Like many young people, especially those who've experienced trauma, he made mistakes. He took responsibility. We experiment with drugs in our teens and early 20s. A lot of people do. He even accepted a plea deal, served part of a 120-day sentence. He served his time and walked out with plans to move forward. And that's when I seized him. We caught was this in West Virginia, maybe, or Maryland? Even then, Daniel had rights.
Like
Under the 2024 federal settlement, individuals like him could not be deported until their asylum cases were resolved. But on March 15th, the government put him on a plane anyway. The same flight as Kilmar Abrego Garcia and Richard Duarte Rodriguez. They didn't send him to Venezuela. They sent him to El Salvador, to CCOT. Why? U.S. District Judge Stephanie Gallagher ruled that...
Why?
Oh, stop.
Why?
I didn't want to hear that voice.
Why?
Stephanie Gallagher ruled that Daniel's deportation was not only illegal, but it was a blatant defiance of the court's authority. They don't give a fuck. Trump administration is fighting the courts. They want to strip the courts. It's at least every judge that Trump didn't appoint. that isn't a Federalist Society Leonard Leo sycophant controlled and owned by corporations. The 2024 settlement agreement, which the federal government had willingly entered into and in which Gallagher herself approved, clearly barred the deportation of unaccompanied minors with pending asylum cases. He came here as an unaccompanied minor, so therefore he's being tried under this asylum case still as an unaccompanied minor. So what we see again is the Trump administration welching on deals that the Biden administration made and tearing it up. This is what he did with the Iran agreement with Obama back in 2017, and he's still 2018, and he's still crying about them violating the JCPOA that he fucking tore up. He loves to welch on the deal and then act like other people still need to be held to it. But the admin didn't just skip to the end. It actively undermined the court's order. Rather than begin the lawful process of returning Daniel to the U.S. because nobody leaves CCOT alive, the Justice Department submitted an indicative ruling, a preemptive denial of his asylum claim issued outside any formal hearing or process, as if to excuse their refusal to comply. Well, he was going to get denied anyway. Gallagher wasn't having it. She rejected the move unequivocally and reaffirmed her directive. The government must facilitate Daniel's return. That was weeks ago. Not only has the admin refused to act, they've given no evidence that they intend to comply. Gallagher gave them time. She gave them the benefit of the doubt, but they've chosen inaction, and in doing so, they've chosen to ignore the rule of law. All these law and order motherfuckers, right? Daniel's case is not an isolated defense. In the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, another man illegally deported to El Salvador despite standing judicial order barring his removal, the admin has similarly refused to act. Even after the Supreme Court upheld a lower court's ruling that his deportation was unlawful, the government has dragged its feet, just like they did with Ramesia Ozturk. And remember that Mahmoud Khalil is still sitting in an ICE detention center in Louisiana. They delayed proceedings. They've ignored deadlines. Judge Paula Ginnis, who oversees that case, has been forced to demand sworn testimony from officials just to determine what, if anything, has been done. And the answer is nothing. This isn't negligence. It's a pattern. One federal judge after another has issued legally binding orders, and one after another, this administration has either ignored them or tried to work around them. This isn't just a defiance of a single judge. It's a constitutional crisis playing out in silence. All right. And this was, by the way, part of Project 2025 that all the shit libs had their hair on fire about. This was a plan. Daniel is still in CCOT, still waiting. So is Richard. Kilmar is still in another prison. And so were hundreds of other innocent men.
I always felt like that Project 2025 thing was like the same thing when they took the Romney plan, Romney Care.
Yeah. Yes,
like
they
the
would
same
have
thing.
watered,
The Democrats would have done the same
watered
shit.
down Project
It just would have been
2025.
called something different.
Well, they were going to incorporate parts of it into the Harris administration anyway. We knew that was going to happen for sure. We're not just under assault there. I got another one from my buddy Arturo Dominguez over at Decolonized Journalism. As DHS grows more violent, has it reached the point of no return? We now have brown shirts living among us. Violent escalations are occurring across the country, and government officials, along with women and children, are being targeted. They don't give a fuck. New brown shirt just dropped. There it is. After many non-citizens have been kidnapped off the street and detained for exercising their constitutionally protected rights, such as free speech or freedom of expression via their tattoos or the clothes they wear, and hundreds being renditioned to inhumane prisons in other countries like we just talked about, now the threat of suspending habeas corpus, which we've done in 2012, thank you, Obama, and sending migrants to places like Libya, which is in the middle of a civil war, the administration's lawlessness is growing exponentially because they realize nobody's going to stop them. From arresting judges and threatening sheriff's departments and mayors across the country to filing complaints against states for not participating in mass deportations the way Trump admin feels they should, Trump officials aren't just blurring the line between the separation of powers, they're also challenging the strength of the judiciary by contesting the Constitution and local, state, and federal laws. Stephen Miller's a douchebag. Yes, we know that. He's a fascist Nazi. Yes, yes, yes. With the recent arrest of a mayor, okay, along with using various federal agencies such as the DEA, the ATF, the U.S. Marshal Service, among others, to conduct raids alongside ICE, as well as the Michigan Attorney General's office, which has always operated on the edge of illegality. The local law enforcement assisted escalation in aggression and violence has seemingly reached a point of no return. No surprise. On Friday, we saw Baz, what's his name, the mayor of Newark, arrested after demanding access to a recently opened ICE detention facility owned by the private prison company Geo Group in Newark. According to Mayor Ras Baraka, that's his name, Ras Baraka, the building, a former halfway house called Delaney Hall, is operating without proper permitting and inspections, claimed DHS denies, but prompted his action nonetheless. Show the receipts, motherfuckers. In April, Mayor Baraka sued to block the facilities open, but that didn't happen, citing that Geo Group had failed to acquire the needed construction permits and refused local inspections, violating city and state laws. Again, who's stopping them? As previously reported, Geo Group signed a 15-year contract worth over $1 billion to house as many as 1,000 migrants for extended periods. Attempts to access the facility were partially motivated by ensuring the detention center wasn't overcrowded, as many are. So naturally, they're going to block you from getting in and confirming that they are certainly overcrowded.
I mean, imagine giving a contractor, like, go back up. How much is that?
$1 billion.
$1 billion. Okay, give you the contractor $1 billion. You've got to you've got to make a house that can house 1,000 people for extended periods. You know, like what? Okay.
No, not one. Oh no, it can be multiple facilities. It's not even saying that was just for this one contract.
Right.
All right. That's for all of ICE. So today, the city of Newark is filing a complaint with Essex County Superior Court because ICE has opened their Delaney Hall facility without following proper building safety protocols. They failed to give city officials access to conduct inspections required under municipal ordinances and state code. This violates city and state law. They just don't give a shit. You're going to have to send the cops and somebody in there to fight the feds. Good luck. Baraka's arrest occurred as 3 members of Congress were planning an oversight visit to the already controversial facility. The New Jersey delegation of lawmakers consisted of Reps Robert Menendez, that's not Bingo Bob, the Egypt corrupt guy that just resigned out of Congress. All right, LaMonica Ivor,
Congress,
and Bonnie Watson Coleman. They're all like representing Essex County in the Newark area.
Yeah. The New Jersey Devils. We got it.
As members of Congress, they cannot be denied access to an ICE detention facility. And as they were entering, Homeland Security alleges that Mayor Baraka tried to force his way in a claim rebuked and debunked by video evidence. Then they pushed her. This didn't stop Homeland Security Assistant Secretary from immediately releasing a statement portraying a much different narrative than what occurred. What a shock. Brown shirt's gonna brown shirt.
Oh, did they Photoshop his hands? And
she accused the lawmakers of storming the facility. Right-wing social media echoed her words and exploded with wild accusations of assaults on 7 law enforcement officers, and they're going to serve and arrest Congress.
Pepper, even.
Right, which is a claim not initially made by any federal agency, including DHS, until Saturday. Quote, members of Congress storming into a detention facility goes beyond the bizarre Politico stunt and puts the safety of our law enforcement agents and detainees at risk. I want the fucking cameras in there. Let the cameras in. Members of Congress are not above the law. No, members of DHS apparently are, because they don't have to follow state regulation, city ordinances, inspections, or anything else. Cannot illegally break into detention facilities. It's not a legal detention facility, asshole. That's the argument.
No one is above the law.
Had these members requested a tour, we would have facilitated a tour of the facility, completely homogenized to no area that they might actually want to see. This is an evolving situation. Somebody needs to fire that motherfucker, or at least lock him up, for now preventing Congress from entering the facility. McLaughlin's reactionary response came before video evidence surfaced online, and it would have been benefited her to wait, take a breath, and see what happens. Instead, she exposed how the administration operates like a far-right social media does. Okay, much like claiming mass shooters are trans immigrants before any facts are known, the Trump camp tries to get out in front of a story and develop a narrative that their base can feed off of and spread across the internet. True or not? Most likely not. But like every other case...
Meanwhile, at the Legion of Doom.
Pretty much. But like in every other case, the truth was exposed. Except this time, as videos of the altercation began to surface almost immediately after the incident, the rebuke came with a bang. Despite this, DHS made no corrections, nor is it recanted the outlandish claims that McLaughlin continues to make. They have their narrative and they're sticking to it. Forget what the tape shows. Her language shows...
I reject your reality and substitute my own.
100%. It was alternative facts, was Kellyanne Conway's thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But she got me on the counter.
It wasn't me.
She even got me on camera.
It wasn't me. All right. The lawmakers had a right to be there. Okay, they planned to take this fictional tale of painting the lawmakers who had a right to be there, and after arresting the mayor of the largest city in New Jersey, as if they were operating outside the law, to criminalize them in the public's eye. Again, Mayor Baraka, why haven't you sent anyone in to arrest the people at the ICE facility for violating the city laws and for operating a facility illegally? After the altercation, Representative Robert Menendez held a press conference and described what took place. His statement was backed by video evidence seen across social media. Soon after, the far-right narrative began to change. However, the escalatory language remained the same on social media, accusing Democrat lawmakers and the Newark mayor of assaulting police, something that did not occur, and violating various laws that have no bearing on the situation. All right?
What How dare you, bearing, Mayor Baraka Waka Flocka Flame?
What does have bearing, again, it's stupid because he should have locked up the people in the facility and it should never have opened in the first place. Despite multiple protesters being present, around 10 DHS agents emerged from the facility to detain only Baraka for trespassing, suggesting that he was targeted. He also wasn't a member of Congress who was legally allowed to be there. No one else in the crowd was charged. The mayor denies being on the property after being told to step back. And according to the video, it appears that he was not on the detention center's property when apprehended. Huh. Local organizer Viri Martinez told Guardian there was yelling and pushing. Then the officers swarmed Baraka. They threw one of the organizers to the ground. They put Baraka in handcuffs and put him in an unmarked car. This is a mayor. Even so, acting U.S. Attorney for New Jersey, Alina Habba, says Baraka ignored warnings from Homeland Security investigations agents to leave the property, which videos show he did. Now it appears Homeland Security is looking to file charges on the 3 New Jersey representatives, alleging that they were responsible for assaulting Homeland Security investigations and ICE agents, and even alleging that a female agent was body slammed by the lawmakers. They're unconscionable. For reference, 2 of the lawmakers are women, and one of those women is 80 years old. Uh-huh. On Saturday, McLaughlin claimed on CNN that more arrests were coming. Hopefully her being arrested was coming. And DHS had body camera footage of those members of Congress assaulting those ICE enforcement officers, including, quote unquote, the body slamming of a female ICE officer. Andrew Solander at Axios later confirmed that the investigations into the lawmakers are underway. Release the tapes. I want to see. I guarantee you we'll never see those tapes. Guaranteed. Meanwhile, other dangerous escalations by ICE and other federal agencies working alongside ICE, including local cops who are providing support for ICE raids, have grown more forceful with each passing day. Last week, however, those escalations grew more aggressive, more violent, and have crossed many legal boundaries, from obscuring the separation of powers to arresting judges, mayors, and even threatening to arrest officials who don't fully work with ICE. Wait, what? Yeah. In Worcester, Mass., ICE tried taking a Brazilian family into custody, and when neighbors began to question them after they wouldn't identify themselves, the situation grew tense as many members of the community tried to push back against them. When asked to show a warrant for arrest, the agents refused and instead enlisted local police to assist them. Quote, my understanding was that it was a mother and 2 daughters, one of whom had a little baby in her arms, a 1-month-old baby. The father's already been taken, so the mother's now going to get taken and leave these 2 behind with the 2 daughters behind, one of whom just had a baby? It was a moment of a lot of anguish, she continued. At some point, you just say, this child has to go to the bathroom. We're going. Once police arrived, the situation grew more tense and aggressive. What a surprise, because cops only escalate the problem, leading police to hold a teenage girl on the ground with her face pressed into the pavement while handcuffing her and arresting another woman. The incident left the community outraged, like so many others across the country, because ICE routinely skirts the law to conduct its operations. Like we said, we have brown shirts that are operating under their own set of rules, which are none. Its agents are further corrupting agents from myriad agencies and putting the general public at greater risk. Because once you're attached to ICE and once you're doing it on behalf of ICE, you'll get away with whatever the fuck you want.
Videos of violent ICE arrests are spreading across the country 3 months into Donald Trump's second term. Just this week in Massachusetts, several ICE actions went viral on social media. In Newton on Monday, 2 men were forced out of a car as agents smashed in the windows. 1 man was dragged out and tackled by 5 agents. And in Worcester on Thursday, chaos erupted as ICE arrested a woman, and Worcester police arrested 2 others after a crowd formed to challenge the ICE arrest. Worcester police said in a statement that they responded to preserve the peace and prevent anyone from being injured. Local police in Massachusetts are required to report the names of those arrested. But because ICE typically does not, it can be difficult to get information unless the detainee has a lawyer. ICE's secrecy fuels claims that agents are disappearing people with no due process, even in cases when those arrested face criminal charges. One of the men arrested on the Watertown-Newton line this week had faced charges related to abuse allegations. But immigration lawyers say many people arrested often have no records.
I fear that this country is becoming a police state, that folks have their basic constitutional rights are being trampled. It's a terrifying vision of the road that Trump is taking us down.
ICE did not respond to requests for comment, but the Trump administration says it's going after the worst criminals while arresting so-called collaterals.
They're really bad.
Illegally. Civil rights experts are calling for greater transparency.
That's Yoda on
they say
YouTube's
information
Smoke More the
makes it
Weeds.
easier to deport people.
Awful. Awful. That's WBUR. We actually brought the WBUR article about Ramesha Ozturk last week. They seem to be doing really good work lately, too. And yet it gets worse. In Oxnard, California, ICE agents took a father into custody in a convenience store parking lot and left his children in his vehicle abandoned. Child endangerment. Why isn't anybody charging the ICE agents and arresting them for child endangerment? Because they covered their faces? I don't know. I would arrest everybody at the facility that father was taken to. These people have no fucking balls. These actions are happening several times a day all over the nation after we've seen agents smash people's car windows, raid the wrong house intentionally, and rob a family, and take people's children from them as they're being deported back to their home countries, while also deporting U.S. citizen children despite being protected by U.S. law. The next logical step for a tyrannical government is to disappear U.S. citizens for opposing Trump's policies, which is already starting to happen, by the way. I've heard of the one in Arizona that got sent to CCOT, a guy from Houston. An administration that willingly lies to hundreds of millions of people is absolutely dangerous, especially considering every time they're caught, they escalate, they double down. The clear motivation here is silencing opposing voices, including lawmakers and elected officials on every level. When it doesn't work, the administration pushes harder by inventing stories and trying to charge people criminally based on these delusional tales. If you didn't think they'd come after U.S. citizens, as many have warned, take note. This is precisely how they'll do it. If they can go after mayors and members of Congress, what's going to make anyone think they won't come after any of us? Nearly every federal law enforcement agency, along with local and state cops, is participating in this massive government overreach. It's like an Order 66. That should terrify everyone. Support Arturo, Decolonized Journalism, over on Substack, extremearturo.substack.com. Give him a monthly subscription. Dude's doing great work lately. Killer. Also writes for Unicorn Riot and other independent publications. A true independent. And he's from Jersey, I found out this week. And we're about the same age. Good dude. Speaks fluent Spanish. Talks with the people in the facilities. Has family of all different shapes, sizes, and colors. Really has a perspective that we need. If YouTube decides to kiss the Trump administration's ass, they certainly won't remonetize us for that. So if you're able to, and it means, please support the independent media you want to see. Support INN. Throw us a couple bucks over on ko-fi.com/Indie News Network. Best way to do it. Cash App, $Indie News Network. PayPal.me/Indie News Network. And at INNnewsletter.com or over at IndieMediaToday.com. That's my newsletter where you see the thing above my head. Support independent media, kids, because we need it more than ever. And I love you. And have a good night, fam.
Keep listening to what boats have to tell you.
No! We just fucking lost the stream!
Can't keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your heads. Why play civil if you won't listen to 50,000 dead? And now we know our mission, we form a militia, make Congress a prison.